looking at to the side.
Well, I have 6 o'clock, and I think we've got everybody online, so I say we get started. Before I turn it over to my co-host tonight, just some of that housekeeping things that I want to remind everybody. This session is being recorded for record keeping, quality assurance, and training purposes. I will be uploading the video to the Washington County Challenge Facebook page and to the Washington County Challenge YouTube channel that you can go back to refer to for notes. So if anybody has any technical issues, again, during this, please don't forget to send us a text message or let us know that you're having difficulties, and we will see what we can do. I'm not dressed to climb a pole, but I'll see what I can do from my desk. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Nita Farmer with the Washington County Chamber of Commerce, who will be the host tonight. Nita, take it away.
Hello, how is everyone?
Great.
So good to have all of you. See Mike, he's all ready, so that's good. So we're very thankful to have our panelists tonight, and I'd like to introduce them. First off, I'd like to introduce Mike Spiegler. He's the Registered Investment Advisor, Certified Public Accountant, and Principal Partner at Spiegler Blevins and Company. Mike is also the Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubator Board of Directors past president and is currently serves as the finance chairman. He has been a loyal member of our chamber and also a contributor of the Chamber's Elite 2020. So we're certainly thankful to have him on board. Thank you,
And
Mike,
I'm happy
for
to
being
be here. Happy to help.
Mark Graham. He is Vice President of Administration and General Counsel at Emory and Henry College. Mark is the immediate past president at the incubator and currently serves as a board member at the Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubator. So Mark, thank you for being a part of the panelists tonight. And we have Christine Lawson. She is certified licensed underwriter and agency sales leader for State Farm Insurance. Thank you, Christine, for being here tonight. I thought for us to start, I would like to call out all the participants in alphabetical order of their business, and so they can tell our panelists, number one, your name, your company's name, what you're going to be doing, and if you're going to compete as a startup or an existing business. I would like to start out with Crafts on Main. You there, Jenny?
Jenny, you're muted right now.
Sorry, I'm on my phone and I didn't know where the unmute was. I'm Jenny Carlisle. I'm the owner of Crafts on Main, on Main Street, right across from the police department. I'm competing as an existing business, and I have a textile arts, fiber arts shop, retail shop with fabric and other textile and fiber arts, and we also have a learning space with classes. So that's what I'm doing.
Thank you, Jenny. Next, we have Empower CPR.
My name is Kayla French, and my business is Empower CPR. We're running as an existing business. We do CPR classes, ACLS, PALS, advanced medical provider courses that we'll be offering to the community and to businesses and individuals.
Thank you, Kayla. Next is Frog Level Guitar Shop.
Hello, my name's KT Van Dyke, and I am running a instrument or fretted and stringed instrument repair shop here in Abingdon.
Thank you, Kevin.
Kevin, are you a startup or an existing?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I'm a startup.
Thank you.
We just got his form back too. Thank you. Love and Light Specialty Boutique.
Hi, I'm Kitsy Manuel, and I'm the owner of Love and Light Specialty Boutique. We carry a wide range of clothing, home goods, handmade items, and we are competing as a startup.
Thank you, Kitsy. Next is Powerhead Superfoods.
Hi, my name is Eric Fields. I'm with Powerhead Superfoods, and we are competing as a startup business. We'll be producing microgreens, lavender, rare honeybee breeds, and the products that go with that. And that's about it.
Thank you, Eric. Next is Richard Graves Art. Are you there, Richard?
Richard was supposed to have someone join, and I'm looking to see. He had someone that was supposed to be joining tonight, and I want to make sure I didn't miss her to bring her in. But he's got 15 minutes for her to join. So,
Okay. Thanks, Sandy. Next, we have Side Art CSA.
Hi, my name is Tyler Reynolds East. My business is Side Yard CSA. We're competing as a startup, and what we do is grow food, package it into weekly produce boxes, and then deliver it to people's doorsteps.
Thank you, Tyler. Sprout Consignment.
Hey, I'm Katie Humphreys. I am the owner of Sprout Consignment. We are competing as an existing business. We've been in business for 10 years this year. So we are a consignment shop for children and then also for ladies who are pregnant.
Thank you, Katie. Next, we have the Pedaling Goat.
Hey guys, it's Derek Jones. We are actually a startup as well. And our goal is to have a place for barbershop / men's goods, kind of a use some local vendors in the community for not just men, but geared toward men's clothing / goods.
Thank you, Derek. Next, we have Town Square Medical.
Hey, good evening, Matt Justice, Town Square Medical in Glade Springs. I sent the form in as a startup, but we should be ready and going before this competition is over. So should we have filed as existing, or did we send that in right?
How long have you been in business?
I just filed a month ago, but we're ready to. The articles of incorporation have already been done, and we should be open and ready to go before the competition is over. So, but we filed
Since it's less than 2 years, you can be a startup.
Okay, very good. Well, that's us.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Next is Williams Documentary. Don, are you there?
well, Dawn, you had 2 microphones going before. Now what happened? You've got it muted. Look on the Zoom screen and look at the microphone and hit the unmute. Look on the Zoom page where all of our pictures are at. And you should see the microphone emblem, and you should unmute it there. You're still muted, Nita. We can come back.
Okay, that's fine. Well, before we get started, I was wondering, Kathy had brought up some different things that would be good tonight. And number one is I'd like to ask Mark Graham if he could cover the differences between a sole proprietorship, partnerships, corporations, and LLCs.
We missed one. We missed.
Oh, excuse me. Woodfield's Coffee.
I mean, I know I'm typically a morning business.
Hey, Sarah, I'm sorry.
I'll talk to you. I'm Beth Childers. I'm Wolf Hills Coffee, and we are a small batch roaster and coffee shop. We are competing as a startup.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that so much.
And just a quick reminder that everyone should keep their videos on, but their mics muted. Oh, and Don, you got it going.
Yes, thank you. I'm Donald Williams. This is a startup. I'm doing a video documentary on developing on the Creeper Trail. Did you hear
Thank
any
you,
of that?
Don.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Mark?
Okay, well, thank you all for inviting me to join you. This is exciting. It's good to see a few familiar faces out there and some new ones as well. So good luck to everybody. Sounds like we've got a mix of existing businesses and those who are just starting out, and even those that are in existence, but that may not have been in business for very long. I hope this will be helpful to you because you may want to take things to the next level and do something different based on what we say. I will preface what I say with I'm not a tax expert by any means. And so if you have particular tax questions, Mike's going to speak to us here in a little bit, Spiegler, and he can tell me or tell us what may suit your situation better for tax purposes. Which of these business entities is best for you. So, but if most folks are just starting out in business, they often don't incorporate that business and may just be doing business as their individual selves. And that's kind of how, if you think about the progression of how businesses took off, that's how things started out. You were the cobbler, or you were the farrier, and you were working out here for yourself, and that was your business, and that was all there was. So that's kind of known as a sole proprietorship, where an individual is operating, as the business there. They're engaged in the business. They operate the business. The owner, operator, manager, all the things there. There's no board of directors there for anybody to answer to. There's no corporate paperwork. You're individually on the hook for the business liabilities. So, if you order products, you pay for them. You're responsible for paying for those. You pay your taxes based on the profits on your individual tax returns. So I know Christine Lawson is going to talk to us some about insurance here in a little bit as well, but just a good insurance example of that. If most of us have insurance, but if, for example, you've got a vehicle and you're in a business, but you're a sole proprietorship and you have an accident, of course, we hope that the insurance will cover that. But if not, you as the sole proprietor of that business are responsible for anything else that might be damages and things. You might be personally liable for any damages not covered by insurance. A creditor can garnish your personal bank account to satisfy any judgments and things like that. So this is certainly the simplest and most convenient way to operate businesses if you are small, but it's not ideal for anyone interested in limiting your personal liabilities. So you see, for example, you may be Joe Blow doing business as Joe's Diner, and that's okay. You can do that. But we'll talk about some other options that may better protect you. The next one, if you think about progressing from a sole proprietorship, maybe a partnership, maybe a couple of folks get together, or 3 or 4 decide to get together, and we're going to make cider, or we're going to sell bikes on the Creeper Trail, or whatever we're going to do. Now, this may not be incorporated either. You may or may not have a written partnership agreement, but a lot of folks would certainly try to have that agreement in writing, so it spells out how things are going to be operated, who's going to be operating it, how profits are to be split, how assets are to be divided amongst the parties after dissolution. But you aren't required to have a partnership agreement. So you may be Billy Johnson doing business out here and Billy and his brother Bobby operating as Johnson Brothers Construction, and that's fine. You can do that. You can have an agreement between the two. You're going to equally split the profits of the business, or you're not. You're going to do it 60-40, or however you're going to do that. So you may have a couple of partners get together and call themselves A&E Auto Auction. Well, that's fine. You can do that. But again, those partners are going to be personally liable for any goods and services that they go out here and purchase and are responsible for. So, and then of course things developed that corporations came about, which was a way to look at businesses as a separate legal entity. And it was designed pretty much to limit that individual liability. So you think about a small corporation, you may set that up to make sure that folks don't get at your personal assets if your business were to fail. I practiced law in Abingdon for 20 years. And so we wanted to make sure, that our law office was separately incorporated as a corporation. And Mike Spiegler was our CPA. And so, if you got sued, of course, we had liability insurance for that, malpractice insurance and all that kind of good stuff as well. But they're not going to come and take my family home because of something that happened in the course of that business. So you do the business in the name of the corporation. You set that up. I heard Matt say he had sent some stuff off to the State Corporation Commission. You file your incorporation papers. You set that up separately by filing those articles of incorporation with the state. You have to use company, incorporated, or some abbreviation of that in your name to tell the world that you are dealing with an entity other than an individual. So if you sign things properly in the corporate name, borrow money in the corporate name, have your checkbook in the corporate name, then you are not going to be generally liable for the debts of the corporation. So that's a big advantage to being able to do that. So lots of different corporate models out there. You can be a stock corporation. So you think about big corporations like GE. You may own stock in GE or Walmart, and you can be one of the owners of that business, but you're a shareholder among many. So, or it can be a non-stock corporation. For example, Christine and I are in the Abingdon Rotary Club. Well, we incorporated that entity till it's actually the Abingdon Rotary Club Incorporated, and Kathy's in there too, so I'll give Kathy a plug. But that is incorporated. So the organization, that is a nonprofit organization. We don't have stock in that corporation, but it's set up much the same way that you typically have. You file your articles of incorporation with the state. You have bylaws that set forth how the organization is going to be structured. You have elect a board, or elect the shareholders, get together and elect officers and directors of the corporation. And that's who run the day-to-day operations. So if you own stock in Walmart, you're not generally out here running the day-to-day operation of Walmart, but you are able to share in those profits if there are any. But if Walmart should go belly up and go bankrupt, they're not going to come and take your house and your car or get into your checking account because it's a separate corporate entity. And so those separate corporations pay their own taxes, or they can distribute money. Mike can tell you how to do that. You do make dividends to your shareholders, so you don't have money in the account and the corporation gets taxed. But if you give that out as a dividend, the individual gets taxed on it because Uncle always wants his share. So, but that is, you got to, again, make sure you keep things in that corporate name and sign things as the corporation, and you don't mix and meddle that, you need to make sure you're filling out your annual corporate paperwork and paying that fee to the state, because if you don't and that corporation lapses, then you are personally responsible for the debts of the corporation. And if you mix all those things up and don't keep good records, they can do what's called piercing the corporate veil, and they can actually come after you individually for what you're doing as part of that business. Let's see, smaller corporations, and Mike can certainly talk more about this, can operate as an S corporation so that profits pass through to the individual stockholders, but that's more technical issue for him. I'm really talking more about the legal structure of the entities. So, for example, another good advantage of a corporation is that the company can live on after the death of the person who's the primarily operating that business. You think of something like the Walt Disney Company. Well, that again, it has company in its name, so it tells you it's been incorporated. It is a corporation. There's stock that may be sold personally. It may be held, within a family or something. But that continued on after Walt Disney's death. Names also, if you're thinking about names of your business, it can't be confusing if you're incorporating that. So you can't have John Smith Construction Company and John Smith Construction Incorporated. That's too confusing for folks, and the State Corporation Commission won't let you do that. So finally, states began recognizing another type of entity that's a whole lot less cumbersome as that corporation, where you have to issue stock, you have to have bylaws, you have to elect directors, elect officers to run the day-to-day management of the company. And that was limited liability companies. So you're seeing more and more of those now, and you may be abbreviated as LLC. So you see a lot of that. You're required to have LLC in the name or have the name limited liability company. Oftentimes you'll see it abbreviated LTD also. So that means you're a limited liability company, which again, the purpose of the whole thing is to limit your liability. So limiting that individual liability. So this way, the assets of the limited liability company are all that are available to pay any debts of the corporation, and it again protects the individual. But it's a little bit different than the corporation. You have members of an LLC, and you would have an operating agreement, much like a partnership, on how the organization was going to be run amongst the members of that organization. So you don't have directors, only members have an operating agreement, and those members will share in the LLC's profits. Typically, you'll see you may appoint one person as a managing member, and others are just kind of members. They may all work together. They may all jointly run the thing, but it's similar to a partnership, but with the advantage that you can have that limited liability for the individuals. There are other types of corporations out there, which is probably beyond what we want to talk about. For example, professional groups can organize. My law firm was a PC. So that's a professional corporation. CPAs can be professional corporations, but again, you have to have that PC or professional corporation. You see those things in the name of the organization, which again tells the public the individual is not responsible, but the assets are going to be protected there for the individuals. Now, if you're a small organization, even if you are a LLC or a corporation, a bank may say, well, yeah, but you're new and you don't have a lot of assets. The corporation hasn't been in existence a long time. We want a personal, we want you to sign on the note to guarantee it And that might make you personally liable if you choose to do that. But otherwise, the corporation is the only one going to be responsible, or the LLC or whatever, if it's signed in those names. So I know that was a little long-winded, but briefly, 4 things: sole proprietorship, partnership, corporation, or LLC. And those are the main opportunities there you have to protect your assets. So Mike can talk some about the tax differences and all those. And but any questions about that basic structure?
Come on, folks. Now, those 400 questions that we had before we started, lay it on them. All 3 of them.
So, participants, can you all hear me?
Yes.
If you remember last week, one of the requirements to win this award is to be on video at all times. And so I know we've got our pictures up, but that's really not an option for those of you who are participating for the prize money. If you are having technical difficulties, please let us know immediately. But otherwise, you are not supposed to be off camera.
Okay, does anybody have questions for Mark, or for those that are existing businesses? Do you have anything to add in your experience of starting your business? Go for it.
I'd like to bring up a question that I see a lot as businesses are coming in and trying to decide how they want to set their business up. And so you don't have to answer this question right now, but I guess it's a question really for both of you, Mark and Mike. But I have a lot of businesses who come in and decide that they are going to bootstrap their startup. They may have some funds from different parties, or they may be financing it themselves. They may have, let's say, $30,000 worth of assets that they are contributing to the business. If you all could address for them what they really want to consider if they're doing that, both from a legal standpoint and also in considering what structure would be the best for them from a tax standpoint.
Well, I'll dive in first, Mark, if you don't mind, since you had a nice discussion there, and I appreciate all your input and help that you provided in your conversation. But yeah, so when you talk about bootstrapping a startup business, you're talking about leveraging the capital with debt. So, basically what you're hoping to accomplish, or really, I guess what you're really acknowledging is that you need that debt to start your business. And, when that is the case, obviously, other than the financial impact of having to commit your cash flow from your business to a note payment, you also are probably concerned about whether or not your interest on your note will be deductible. So, that's one issue. And generally speaking, as long as your debt proceeds are directly traceable into your business, then they would be what's called qualified business interest and deductible against the business profits as an expense and reduce those profits. Sometimes you can get into trouble when you borrow money and commingle it with personal funds, and then try to pay the debt back from business operations. And what can really happen is, if the IRS comes in and looks, they look at where those funds were used when you commingled them. So just as an example, if you borrowed, I'll just use nice round numbers, $100,000, and you ultimately wanted to put it in your business, but you put it in your personal checking account for a period of time, and over that period of time, you ran $20,000 worth of personal expenses through that account, and maybe you even brought in $20,000 from your paychecks or other sources of personal income. Well, subsequently, when you transferred that $100,000 into the business, the service could look at it and say, well, you used $20,000 of those proceeds for personal funds and therefore for personal expenses, and therefore only 80%, 80,000 divided by 100,000 of your interest is business interest, and the remainder of it is personal non-deductible interest. So, that's one issue that comes along with debt. Another one that comes along with it is how it basically contributes or affects what's called your tax basis in your investment in the business. Can you hear me okay? Okay, good. I got some shaking heads. So, if you think about it, the IRS and states too only want you to be able to deduct losses to the extent of your investment. And if you start off with no debt, let's just say you put $1,000 into your business, what's the most you can lose? Well, $1,000, and the IRS will let you deduct that. But when you start dealing with loans and business loans that you are personally liable for, the IRS tax regulations will let you utilize those borrowed funds that you put in as additional increases in your basis. So as long as you are personally liable on the debt, you will get increased basis in your investment to be able to offset losses that you may incur. So that, that's a good feature of debt. By the same token, as you pay those debts back, it decreases your basis because, your exposure to that liability is decreasing over time. But hopefully that's being offset by profits that you're generating to be able to generate the cash to pay back the debt. So, bootstrap acquisitions or startups are generally referred to as leveraged, sometimes highly leveraged startup businesses that utilize debt. Does that answer your question,
Mike,
Cindy?
I think we have a couple of questions for you.
Okay. Can everybody hear me okay?
We hear you live and clear.
Okay.
So I have a question. The gentleman who trained me in Luthery, he had a business for, I think, like 36 years, but he primarily ran it as a hobby business. To my knowledge, he was a sole proprietorship, maybe in a LLC later, because he did a lot of recording on site as well. But could either Mark or Mike, either of you guys, could you talk a little bit about what details a hobby business?
Well, that's generally a tax term. And what you don't want is to be called a hobby business if you're incurring losses. So a lot of times what we see is farmers, they're really, or let me take that a step further. People who own horses, we see this, I've seen it a lot over the years. The IRS knows that when they see a tax return, let's just say from a high income generator, think about a high income physician, and he has a horse farm that's generating a substantial tax loss. They see that could be a flag for an IRS examination. And what they want to do is come in and try to evaluate that horse farm and make sure that it's truly a business, he's truly operating it to generate a profit, and that it's not just a hobby or something he enjoys doing and is trying to get the benefit of tax deductions for. So generally when you hear discussion around tax about hobby losses, and generally it's hobby losses, not hobby income, what you are usually discussing is trying to avoid having your business classified as a hobby, especially if you are trying or if you are incurring net operating losses that generate tax deductions and offset other sources of income. Hobby income is taxable just like any other income, it'll be taxable to you whether or not it's hobby income or business income.
Okay, so just to touch base on that a little bit, if the business wasn't operating at a loss, what would be the difference between, hobby income and business income? Would there even be a difference?
Well, actually, with a hobby business, you only you don't get the benefit of your deduction, so it's not a good classification. I mean, generally, in 35 years, I've never seen somebody who wanted to be called a hobby.
I think in my mentor's situation, it was more of like 3 or 4 ventures that he had. So that was one of many. It wasn't a full-time gig, but yeah. But thank you. That answers my question.
And generally, I'll just say a hobby is going to be a sole proprietorship, as Mark alluded to earlier. There's not going to be any type of corporate or LLC veil over it, and it's going to be a sole proprietorship is just taxed on their profits.
And you can't deduct, I think I'm hearing Mike say, you can't deduct the business expenses in the case that you might be able to do as a business entity, because it's basically money in and out of your sole proprietorship pocket.
Correct.
And you get taxed, as an individual in that case. Let's see, I got a question here. Somebody asking about trademarks and patents. Well, that is a complex question there. It is so complex that generally there's a specialty in the bar that has to deal with that, and you have to be specially licensed. I know at Emory & Henry, we had trademarked the logo blue collar gold standard, and we had to apply and get a trademark attorney to trademark that for us. And you have to be specially licensed through the trademark office. I think Kathy Lowe had some experience with her dad doing some of that kind of stuff as well. But that is a complex thing. I've never done any of that, except I know to look up on the internet who to call, because I don't know the answer.
So I can answer that just a little bit. As far as patents are concerned, there are design patents and there are utility patents. Designs have to do with the design of the item. Utility patents have to do with the design and the use, and they're all encompassing. The closest law firm that I know of that actually goes through the full patent process is McGuire Woods in Richmond and Hunton and Williams in Richmond. There are no patent attorneys that will help you achieve a patent in Southwest Virginia. There are a couple who will represent the patent once it's been achieved, but we had to go to Richmond to get a patent attorney.
Good. I'm seeing some names in Williamsburg. There may be some people down in Knoxville that do that. It's federal law, so it doesn't matter, where they are, they can help with that. So I think anybody that's got that specialty license can help with that.
I have a list too that I got from the Chamber of Commerce to help a manufacturer that was trying to help with PPE equipment this summer. And I have a full list thanks to the Bristol Chamber. So if anybody needs that, just give a yell.
Yeah, once you've got a form, that may be helpful. You can do that. But those folks generally charge a fairly significant premium to do that, has been my experience. So.
There's some good, of course it's Tennessee, but if you go to any place like Nashville where there's a lot of musicians, you're going to be able to find copyright attorneys. They're easier to get them to go through the process than patent attorneys. There's all kinds of different functions that patent attorneys provide.
So copyright may be like an original work. Trademark is something like Kellogg's or Exxon or Emery and Henry, those kinds of things, names and brands. And let's see, what was the other one? Patent is more like uses of technology and items that are unique.
And generally, from a tax standpoint, those items are amortizable over 15 years. There is a first year allowance for, I think it's up to $5,000, but otherwise you're writing them off over 15 years.
Are you guys aware of any resources that folks could research to see if their name has already been taken?
You can go to the U.S., you can just Google U.S. Patent Office, and you can actually search that in a search engine. Is that right, Mark?
Are you talking more about corporate names, or are you talking about? So if you're incorporating in Virginia, you can go look on the State Corporation Commission website, and it lists all the names of all the companies that are, and it's got an separate LLC listing, and you can go in and you'll even see fictitious names. So, you know, you may be Arbico, which is the business name for Arby's. So, you know, they may have something on there as Arbico doing business as under this fictitious name. So if you're going to do a fictitious name, you file that with the state. So all that would be on record in the state. And you, again, if you can get an idea of what you want to call your business, and you go search that in Virginia and see if there are any, you don't want, again, those confusing or similar names, because they won't incorporate that. So otherwise, then you can reserve a name while you're filling out the paperwork. If you've got a great idea and you want to do that, you can reserve your name. But all that's on the State Corporation Commission website in Virginia.
We recently worked with a business that happened to. So she named her business. She was in operation. And then one day she gets an email from somebody in California or somewhere that said, you know, I'm sorry, we already have that name. You can't use that name any longer. So she had to go through the whole process of getting another name. And it was a real big process for her at that point to get everything changed over. She already had her marketing materials and T-shirts and all kinds of things made up. So it sounds like Cindy Fields has some resources through the Small Business Development Center that might be helpful in that as well.
Katie, I believe you had another question.
Sorry, I did. Mike, I was just wondering, like right now, excuse me, I'm a sole proprietorship, and I don't know that I want or need to transition to any other form of business. But if I were to make that transition, as far as for, you know, the ease of achieving taxes, you know, getting them done at the end of the, you know, the year, when is the best time to transition from one type of a business into another one?
Well, Katie, I'll just say that really it can happen anytime. As far as a best time, you know, I'm not really sure there's one, because you know, if you're operating as a sole proprietor and you're considering, you know, changing entities, you're trying to, more than likely trying to put some type of liability shield over your business. And, you know, it sounds like, you know, generally it's not something you want to wait around for timing to do. You know, once you do become a corporation or an LLC, there is a potential that, you know, you will start to trigger some additional costs in your tax preparation, because the LLCs and the corporations are legal entities in the eyes of the law, and they have their own tax return filing requirements. So, there is no ideal time. I mean, it's always nice to do something on the first of the year or the start of a quarter, especially if you have payroll, just because it makes the numbers easier in the transition. But really, it's not a big deal either way, because you're going to have to start a new checking account, start new bank accounts, and start a process over, regardless of what day of the year it is.
Gotcha. That's helpful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any insurance questions? Go
Sorry.
ahead. I'm sorry.
I apologize. So if there's not a liability reason as far as needing to protection, like I'm not sending kids down a zip line, I'm just showing their clothes at the shop. If there's not a liability issue, in your opinion, is there a reason to transition away from a sole proprietorship to another type of business?
Well, Mark can comment on this, but in today's society, I don't think you're ever really free from the opportunity for somebody to sue you or litigate against you for some reason or another. Anymore, we see a lot of sole member LLCs, which operate just as simplistically and really in the same manner as a sole proprietor. A one-member LLC, well, first of all, generally in LLCs are referred to as partnerships. And when you have a one-member LLC, it is called a sole member LLC, and it's a disregarded entity. So when it comes tax time, you file the same Schedule C as you do when you're a sole proprietorship. So, really, other than the liability, Val, there's no difference in a sole proprietor nor versus a sole member LLC. Now, once you start to add partners, then you move out of that sole member LLC into a true LLC partnership, and then you pick up a partnership tax return. But there are, other than the liability veil that's over you, the differences between a sole proprietorship and an LLC are virtually nil.
So I think this is a good segue to let Christine Lawson talk to you about liability, business liability, and how it affects, how it could affect your personal resources.
Thank you so much. How is audio? Y'all can hear me okay? Thank you.
You're fine, thanks.
Hey, I so admire this group of entrepreneurs. I'm always in awe when people are willing to take this personal risk for their vision. And I can only imagine that this part isn't so much fun. You have this creative vision and things you want to do. And then there's the business aspects of it that you definitely want to get right. And I want to thank the chamber. I think this is absolutely outstanding to put this team together to help, because small business doesn't have an HR department and a legal department. So this is awesome. Thank you. I was going to ask Katie Humphreys. Hey, are you Sprout Consignment?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Okay. I was thinking about this and I thought, you know what? I needed to talk to Mark and maybe even Mike, because I wondered, in looking at your Facebook or website, that you have as a consignment, who's responsible if someone wants to sell a crib that actually a used crib that had been recalled, but
right.
I would worry about that. Yeah. And so who's really responsible? Because you could have a shared liability there.
I think you're exactly right. And what we do is for the equipment that comes in, we always check on that SPSS government website to make sure that there has not been a recall. And the funny thing is, oftentimes before you even have to plug it in there, if you enter in, say, the crib's model number. If it's a Delta crib and it's model SP125, if you put that in, oftentimes Google will, before you even have to research it, flag it up that it's been recalled. And that's not to say that I'm not
accept them. Yeah.
Right. We don't accept things that have been recalled. Like, and it's so
smart.
funny because, you know, like we had this thing called a rock and play, which was a really cool thing that Fisher Price did that I loved. And, you know, it got recalled. You know, it's probably one of those hot coffee situations, but, you know, that's something that I personally love for my 2 kids, but I'm not going to sell it because the liability isn't worth taking that dive to do it. Even though it's something I personally had loved, like I would give it to one of my friends probably, and probably should not, but I'm just saying, you know, it's something that I feel was a really great product, but it was recalled, so we're not selling them.
That's really smart. Okay, that is awesome.
But thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate it.
I mean, I took a little bit of a look at, you know, many of you I could find online. And so I had some thoughts individually, but of course I want to answer your questions. You know, it seems like for most, if not all of the folks here, that your standard business owner policy, it's called a BOP, B-O-P, should be okay. I mean, there are some things that like, who is the side yard CSA? That's like awesome looking. Is that Tyler?
Yeah, that's me.
Okay, like, do you have any employees? Are you planning to?
It might be just sort of, you know, pay people on a as needed basis, based on, you know, demand that, you know, 1 week we won't be able to pick everything in time. So, you know, we get a couple people out and, you know, pay them.
Well, you're going to hate my feedback on that because, look, if someone's using their personal car, like I'm imagining you would maybe someday like to have a fleet that's all wrapped and beautiful, but at this point, if you're using your personal vehicle to deliver,
Mm-hmm.
and then you run an errand to Walmart or, you know, Wolf Hills Coffee on the way, you're kind of intermixing your personal and your business. And that, boy, I tell you,
Sure.
I would say probably legal and accounting and insurance, boy, that makes us all very nervous.
Okay.
And then to have friends sharing the delivery, now they are using their vehicles for a business purpose. So, boy, that's where insurance companies like black and white stuff, you know,
Sure.
like
Yeah.
your vehicle is used for this purpose. Is it personal? If there's some incidental business, that's one thing. But when you bring in some other folks to do things when you don't have the capacity, I would say that's very problematic. You could potentially be opening yourself up. And I don't know that you can pay them enough to, you know, if it's that little work to justify, you know, adding an insurance rider for their vehicles, right?
Right. Sure.
Yeah. So be really careful.
Yeah. Thank you.
And that also runs into other issues as far as whether or not there are truly employees or contractors. And, you know, we all want to try to call everybody a contractor and say, well, I'll pay them on a 1099. But the reality is that, you know, if you're controlling their behavior, the relationship, if you have any financial type of control or incentive over their, you know, they're more than likely an employee. Now, you know, if you hire some guy to deliver your produce who's also delivering it, you know, for 3 or 4 other people in town, or has some type of delivery services and is holding himself out to be in that business, that's one thing. But more than likely, you know, he's delivering for you. You're telling him when to deliver, how to, you know, how to place things, how to act when he gets there. So yeah, you know, there are times when you actually want them to be employees so that maybe they fit under a workers' comp policy, or you can cover them under your, you know, other insurance products. But, you know, be real careful and try to get it right, because, you know, what we see a lot is, you know, everybody wants to just call people that work for them here and there contractors. And at the end of the day, they can expose you to some liabilities that you don't want to be exposed to. And if you treat them improperly and the IRS catches you, they'll go back and assess you the Social Security and Medicare taxes on what you pay to them anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely be mindful of that. And then, I mean, the subscription service, I just think it sounds like a cool business. So that delivery piece was the only problematic thing. And then, thank you, Mike, because workers' comp was something, if you are planning to have employees, work comp, is anyone going to have employees, 3 or more? I think, is everyone kind of a sole prop or partnership?
As far as employees, do you mean like
Arabeth has her hands up.
contractors?
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you say that again?
Do you mean like actual W-2 employees or contractors?
Yes, W-2s.
Okay. So no.
Okay.
How many of you have people working for you but don't have them on W-2? Raise your hand.
Ooh, interesting. Yes, we need to talk. Yeah.
Okay, so just a gentle reminder, if you are competing as an existing business, you are required to hire an employee who works for you and does not receive 1099s. Just a gentle reminder.
That's good to know. Okay, so work comp, I mean, it's mandated in the state if you have 3 or more employees, but you can opt out as the business owner. But I would be careful about that because, I mean, there's medical care for, work injuries. It doesn't matter if it was the person's fault or not, just in the course of doing business. And there's some lost wages. It's not going to make anybody here rich. That's not what it's designed for, but it is there because, your employees may have an expectation that if they are injured in the course of working for you, there could be that expectation that you're going to take care of them, right? And I know you'd want to take care of them, but boy, these emergency room bills can be very expensive. And that's minor.
Yeah, sorry, Chris. There's the advantage of, it's expensive. Nobody likes to pay that, the workers' comp assessments and charges. But the advantage of that is there's a workers' comp bar. So that means, they have to, if they're injured on the job, they have to apply for payment or reimbursement from that fund, and they can't sue you. So there is some advantage to, getting that done right and spending some time with your CPA and your insurance agent and your lawyer and trying to set all these things up right so you don't have problems later on down the line because you tried to save a little money here and it cost you a little more money later. So I think of cases like and I've seen the consignment shop when I'm up at JJ's or something. So I know where that one is. But, if somebody walks in and just falls over something that, you were arranging your inventory in there. And
Hey, that's mine, Mark. I haven't gone there yet.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You need to. So it's another good reason why you would need to have insurance for things like that. So, take it away, Christine.
I know. I was so enthralled by looking at a lot of these business online. I was thinking, okay, I wanted to talk to the frog level guitar shop dude too about stuff. But yes, okay. So work comp, definitely put that on the list of insurances to inquire about. The BOP or the business owner policy, that's a standard package. It, depending on your type of business, if you have inventory or you've got equipment, this could be physical equipment that you use to do what you do, whether it's repair guitars, it could be the inventory in your consignment shop, it could be, the bags of roasted coffee beans, this could be your computers, right? Your tablet, what you use in the course of conducting business, your printers or all-in-one machinery there. I think, is it, who is the fellow who is the frog level guitar? Okay. Where'd that name come from, by the way?
It actually belonged to my mentor, the gentleman who trained me.
Not copyrighted, right?
As far as I know, it's not copyrighted. There is a frog level builder Frog Level Guitar builder, but separate entity completely.
There's also a place in Tazewell County that's Frog Level, a little
Yeah,
community.
I have family from out that way, actually.
Yeah.
There's a Frog Level in Abingdon.
So this is so interesting. One thing that you would want to look at with your insurance is, and it's not in the home, right? Your business is not at home? Or is it at home?
It is, it's kind of a weird situation. I'm still at the previous workshop that belonged to my mentor. I took over his business. And for the last year or so, I've been working out of the old workshop, but I'm getting ready to leave. So I'm in a transition period right now. So.
Ooh, okay. Yeah. Are you leasing the space?
That was the plan originally. However, when COVID hit, we worked out an agreement between us two, and it financially it made sense. But no, I'm not like technically or legally leasing the space.
Okay. So tree falls on it or it goes up in smoke, electrical fire or something, all the equipment, are you the legal owner or is the mentor still the legal owner of all the equipment?
He is still the legal owner. He maintained his business license through 2020 at the beginning of the year, but he has terminal illness, and with pandemic and everything, it's a lot of moving pieces, but that's kind of where I stepped in, took over the business. But as I said, probably within the next 3 to 4 months, I'm going to be looking at new spaces.
So my concern with that situation from a risk standpoint is let's say you've got every musical instrument from the infamous string dusters there, and there's a fire before you can repair it all. And I mean, you have the care, custody, and control of someone else's property.
Mm-hmm.
And, the assumption by whoever leaves their equipment with you is that you are going to, take care of it as if it were your own. And if God forbid something happens, if there's a fire and their equipment in your custody is destroyed, then insurance would cover that. So either you would have the insurance as a tenant with the business in your name, or the mentor has insurance and you are an employee of his. Is any of this structure? And I
yes
don't mean to put you
no.
on the spot, but this would keep me up at night. I'm now officially not going to be able to sleep tonight. So yeah.
So as far as you're right, there is a lot of risk there. Because I have multiple instruments, and some of the instruments I work on are very old and very expensive. The agreement that we worked out is all the risk, at least for the current time being, would be assumed by me out of pocket, which I'm all right with. I've, due to his recommendation, put back a kitty solely for that, and I've been continually building that up. I have looked into insurance, and there is several companies that provide luthiers insurance. However, at the current size of my business, and with all the upcoming expenses and transitions that I have to make, I'm putting that a little bit down the priority list and just assuming that risk out of pocket for the time being.
So I'm going to make a blanket recommendation. When you're starting out and you have these financial decisions to make to prioritize, look at what you have at risk. And this is your assets in your name. Now, typically, now keep me clean, Mark and Mike, a 401k, a qualified retirement plan, not subject to lawsuit risk in Virginia. Pretty much everything else that you own or co-own is on the table. So if you add up everything you own and then everything you have at risk, if you're okay self-insuring, KT, then okay. If you had someone's $3 million Stradivarius, and you were also self-insuring that, I'd say go you, but that I'd say get the biggest liability policy you can get, and get the highest deductible you can get. The higher deductible that you can go, and that would be your self-insurance portion. I think that will keep your insurance costs manageable, and you're not going to turn in small claims, things that are hassles. You should only really turn in claims that are devastating to you financially. So keep your costs low, but cover the very top end of your liability and property. So I'm going to worry about you now. So property,
thanks for the tips.
liability, work comp. Depending on, was there someone in here who does training, the CPR training? So there's a lot of professional guidance and training there. This is one when you work with an insurance professional on that, I would want to talk about some kind of professional liability there. That's one area of insurance I'm not as familiar with when it comes to CPR training and certification and life-saving courses. I am not very well versed. That's a really special niche. But I would imagine it would be a lot like other schools and other training programs. But I would absolutely ask the insurance provider about professional liability when it comes to training, right? Because you provide training and then the students go through certification themselves and then rely on that training and recertification to conduct a service of some kind. And there's inherent liability in that. So definitely want to make sure you can get all the liability coverage you want. Is there someone, let's see, who's the fella who does the Williams documentary? Is he still on?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Dawn.
Yes.
Dawn.
Can you hear me
Hi,
now?
Dawn. Hey.
Yes.
Are there two Donald Williams?
I am.
Crazy. I see two of them. All right. Well, hi, it's nice to meet you. Now I was.
So I see.
Oh, I hear
picture.
you loud and clear.
I see your picture on one computer and the sound on another one. That's why you're getting all this.
Okay, go back
We'll
to
get echo from you, Don, where you've got two, where you're logged in twice. One needs to be on mute, please.
Right. I'm going to turn one of them off.
It sounds like you're depending on how you chronicle your documentary. If it's stored on, electronic media, is it stored in a cloud-based service? I would definitely recommend that, you look at companies that have electronic data coverage. And there are some niche companies, if you store things in the cloud, and if something happened and you couldn't access it at the right time, this has happened with my company a couple times. They have to, Amazon Web Services, we have all of our data backed up to AWS. And boy, when they take that down, we have some significant business interruption, but usually we take it down because hackers are trying to steal our data. So if you have your documentary stored electronically, you'll want to make sure you get virus protection and protection from hackers and things like cyber coverage. And anyone else who has their data, very important data that would be financially devastating and extremely time consuming to recreate, if you've got it stored online, I highly recommend you have some kind of maybe a separate system for that, and make sure you get a Bitdefender or a really good anti-hacking cybersecurity program. So liability, I think go ahead.
I intend to store everything right here and not
in your
put
head?
anything. No, on one of these computers, if I can get them to work right, and not put them out where anybody can find them.
Okay, are you a home-based?
Yes, I have an office.
Okay.
Here on my property, yes.
Yes. All right, so you have a desktop or laptop where that's stored?
Yes, I'm looking at. I keep them generally in my office and locked at night.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you have really good surge protectors because, and make sure talk to your homeowner's insurer about, is surge protected?
I have surge. I have surge equipment.
Okay. Yeah, documenting the value for insurance purposes, I think, will be a big challenge
Okay, well,
for replacement. So I would definitely talk to your homeowner's agent.
thank you. I am no expert in digital, so I'm learning that as well as what I'm trying to do. So that's what I'm doing. That's why I'm sitting here with one computer
Yeah.
working for two. Right.
And definitely have it back. I mean, this is an insurance thing, just a small business thing, but have it backed up somewhere else.
Right. I back up every time I turn it off.
Well, backed up to where?
To a click it that I have in my computer bag.
So that's a physical piece of equipment, or is it cloud-based?
No, it's physical.
Okay. Okay, so the computer crashes, virus or surge, lightning strike, and takes the bag with it. What other option do you have as a plan C? This is not really an insurance question.
I keep them separate. They're not located together.
Okay. Like safety deposit box separate?
Not quite, no. One's over here and one's over. They have to burn down the whole place to get to it.
I know it's just, I would imagine, again, this is, I'm in conjecturing that you update it at certain times as you add to the documentary. And so having an updated one saved to a cloud-based program might be good insurance, so to speak, because it would be impossible to replace it otherwise. So you would not be happy with your insurance company in that case, but.
So you're recommending a physical backup and a cloud backup?
Yes. I mean, am I way off base there, guys? It's just
one off site. Make sure you have one off site.
Yeah, but how does it get up? How does it get updated? I mean, you might update what's on your computer. How does that up?
Every time something is entered, it is backed up physically. Yes.
Okay. Good.
Okay,
Yeah.
I hate to keep interrupting, but Matthew, we're going to have you on the screen, please. Thank you.
Much is made of liability, and I think this is one that people underestimate. So liability is, we talked a little bit about professional liability when you're responsible for the advice, guidance, and care of others, like malpractice and errors and omissions, which I have and Mike and Mark have. But this liability is, hopefully no one here is seeing customers or people in their home that they have a separate location. But harm that occurs in your business to someone, either during the course of business, whether it's a slip, trip, or fall, those are typical liability situations. It is almost never intentional, right? It usually is it was an accidental, something that just happened. We've all seen the places where something could be mopped up on a floor of a business, and then you can see the yellow pylons or signs that say wet floor. Absolutely 100% a liability, but they may not all be that obvious. It could be that a right of way within a business or a store could be blocked, and so someone has to make their way around a fixture or some stock and inventory. Little kids too, their eye level is much lower than an adult, so things could be perilous to little kids in a business. So that you really have to be careful with that. And I think even Wolf Hills Coffee, you guys are at the tasting room, and then you're at the farmers market, and I just saw you guys were going to be down in the new bagel place, which is so cool. That's all fine with the typical business owner's policy, having different offsite locations. So, confirm that with your insurance professional, but usually you're covered for liability even when you're not in your usual space, right? But you're in the course of doing your thing, doing business. So I would say, again, look at what, your assets are and then add up what you have to lose as a sole prop, and make sure your liability reflects what you could be sued for. And this could be What are the things that you could be sued for if someone's hurt? That could be, of course, physical injury, so treatment, medical care, follow-up, therapy. There could be something called a settlement, pain and suffering. I'm not the lawyer here, but these are typical things I see in claim situations. And so, you also look at when someone can't work as a result of an injury that may have occurred at your business. I mean, these are the unpleasant things we don't want to think about, but you don't have the time as a sole prop, a business owner, to do it. Turn it over to an insurance company. They usually have good lawyers. Court fees and attorney's costs are typically covered by your liability insurance too, and that's a big deal. I don't know, Mark, what's 1 hour with a lawyer cost nowadays?
It depends on the type of specialty, but I was on the phone today with one that's about $350 an hour because that's a specialty area that they're defending you on, and that's kind
worth every penny.
Cost of doing business these days.
Yeah.
Typically, the insurance company, as Christine said, will hire those for us when we get sued, which fortunately isn't very often, but occasionally that happens, and if it does, you've got a certain deductible that we're responsible for so much of that, and then they kick in and pay the rest of it off from there. So you don't want to get hit with those. A lawyer or somebody comes in and sues you, or an employee sues you and injured, and I never did that kind of work myself, but there are lawyers out there that are less scrupulous than others, but that will sue you. And, they're looking for the deep pockets. And so you want them to go to the insurance company or go to your business and not into your personal assets.
Definitely.
Yeah. So let's let the contestants, we've only got 45 minutes left. So let's let the contestants start asking some questions, please.
There's a couple in the chat.
Yeah, Katie Humphrey has a question. Where does liability lie when the building you are renting has wear and tear that could be dangerous? Carpet fraying, for example. What about water coming in through a door that hasn't been properly sealed due to heavy rain? And I think if anything made it through last night, it's built good.
That is a good question. Okay, so carpet, an area where people, customers, right, and even employees could be walking, right? Yeah, I mean, I believe now, Mark, keep me clean on this. I'd be sending a certified letter to the landlord and letting him know I believe this could be a hazard, and for your benefit as the owner and mine as the business owner, we both could potentially share in some liability when it comes to the carpet. And like same with the water coming through a door, the door obviously isn't something you rent, but it's, that water on the floor could definitely become a trip hazard, and it could definitely freeze at night and then create additional damage too for the landlord. I mean, Mark, what do you think? I'm thinking a letter.
Oh, I agree. You're going to, a lawyer's going to sue everybody that they can possibly sue. They're going to get the landlord, they're going to get the tenant, they're going to get everybody involved. And the landlord may try to defend the thing, saying, well, I didn't know it was damaged. I'm not in
Right.
there. So if you're not alerting them to the fact that there's a problem there and trying to get them to fix it, you're setting yourself up that you're going to be the one holding the bag at the end of the day. So I put them on notice. This needs to be fixed. Typically, landlords want those things fixed. So they may say, well, fine, you fix it, get it fixed, and then deduct that out of your rent next month or something. And, that's an easy way to handle those things for sure.
Matthew, do you have your hand raised?
No, I have my answer, my question.
Okay.
One of your comments.
Don has his hand up.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I have a question for Christine. One of my professional designations is Certified Identity Theft Risk Management Specialist. So I understand the risk of having things physically protected.
Mhm.
What I doubt is the ability to have your information protected in somebody else's server in the cloud. That appears to me to be the easiest place to attack any information anyone would have. That's why I'm reluctant to have anything to do with them.
Okay.
And plus, I don't have that digital skill to dance around with it.
So I just wonder, I mean, here's the insurance I use on family pictures when I move to a digital camera, and this is a very crude example because it's not a video format or a movie format, but I put all my pictures, digital pictures, on snapfish.com. That way, if all of my printed photos and negatives and discs burn, I will be able to still go out to any computer and pull up my account on snapfish.com and pull my pictures down again, right? I wonder if there is some kind of service that has something similar for, and now yours would take up a lot of space being a documentary. So I knew I shouldn't have crept over in another line that's not insurable.
So let me ask it another way. You had pictures on your phone. Are those, or on your iPad, are those pictures on the phone or are they on the cloud?
Both.
Both. Okay. Well, thank you for that.
And that's to your point. When your storage on your phone is maxed out, it will not update anymore. Therefore, it won't update to the backup either. And that's a problem. If you're a documenter, I can only imagine you're updating it constantly with new interviews and new footage. And so if it's updating, but then
we will have to figure that out and work it out as we go.
Yeah.
But thank you for your advice.
Oh, you're welcome.
Nobody's asked the $1 million tax question on how the entity, your choice of entity, may affect your taxation. Does anybody have those questions?
Yeah, I was going to ask, like you talked about sole prop versus corporation. Why would people not be incorporated or have a corporation if it has less liability? Is there more cost involved?
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Did I just share my screen?
Yes, it's up.
So, yeah, so why would people have a corporation? Really, it all comes down to taxation. And while I was sitting here, I just put this little chart together that sort of compares how profits in a given business might be taxed. And, when you start thinking about sole proprietorships, your profits before the owner takes his money out or whatever the owner can take out are taxed, because a sole proprietor just draws his profits and the profits are subject to self-employment and income tax. But when you get into a corporation, you're typically going to look at an S corporation, which basically says that instead of the corporation being taxed on its profits, that the profits pass through and are taxed on the owner's tax returns. But the big difference is, and if you look here, S corporation profits are only taxed for income tax purposes at whatever your marginal bracket is, while sole proprietors are taxed at self-employment tax. So there are times when businesses have, excess earnings beyond the earnings of, let's just call it, that the owner would require if you hired them, as opposed to, if he owned a business. And once you start having some excess profits, you want to try to shelter them from self-employment tax. So an S corporation can do that for you. The problem is that once you cross into a corporation, you start to trigger the requirements to pay yourself on a W-2 as opposed to just a draw of profits that you can do under one of these three entity types here. And, once you start talking payroll, you're talking about the biggest compliance headache in small business. There's just no ways about it. And, nowadays you can get, there are payroll services that take care of it and make it basically an all-inclusive type service. But, if you're looking at trying to do payroll yourself and not incur expense to have somebody else manage it for you, which I don't recommend, payroll is just a burden to most small employers. So the sheltering some profits from self-employment tax is the biggest reason that people move from an LLC to a corporation.
Mike, I had a question real quick, and sorry if this is redundant and it's been answered previous at some point, but could you talk just a little bit about what is included in that self-employment tax? Because that's something I've had to deal with over the past couple of years.
Okay. So basically, under that example that I had up on the screen, I can put it back up. The profits of a sole proprietor, and you are a sole proprietor. So, your income that you're earning from stringing guitars and what you do minus your expenses is generating a profit. And that whole profit is subject to self-employment tax as well as income tax. And self-employment tax rate is 15.3%. And so, at your lowest bracket, you might, at zero income, you have a zero tax bracket. But as you start to earn income and recognize taxable income, you can work your way all the way up to a 37% federal bracket. So your profits are being subjected to two types of tax. And self-employment tax is nothing but the Social Security and Medicare tax that we're all used to having taken out of our paychecks, and it comes out at 7.65%. And that 7.65% has a Social Security as well as a Medicare component. Well, when your employer pays you on a W-2 as an employee, they withhold 7.65% from your paycheck, and they have to match it. So they have to pay the same amount in to the IRS for their share of employer payroll taxes. So 7.65% times 2 is 15.3%. So you're getting hit, with two levels of tax. Now what happens is you start to say, how can I avoid some of that self-employment tax? Well, the IRS knows that when you start to move to the next entity, the first entity really that will allow you pass through income treatment and to shelter your profits from self-employment tax, the IRS knows that, you might have an alternative goal of avoiding Social Security and Medicare taxes. So they have some reasonable compensation standards that, they look at. For example, I'm just going to make make up some numbers here. In your business, if a normal person working a full-time job can make, I'm just going to pull a number, $75,000, then, they want to see you making $75,000 on a W-2 when you're an S corporation. If you have $100,000 of profits, that $25,000 would be sheltered from self-employment tax. But what you see a lot of times, or what business owners try to do, is say, well, I'm making $100,000, but I only want to put $25,000 on a W-2 because I want to try to shelter as much as I can from Medicare and Social Security taxes. And as I alluded to earlier, the service knows about that. They're aware of it, and they can come in at any point in time and say, hey, you're working 40 hours a week. It's unreasonable for you to make $25,000 a year. So we're going to assess you tax. And we have statistics that say somebody in your business should be making $75,000 for what you have going on. And there's an all events test that goes on there. But the main motivation for moving from a sole proprietorship or a sole member LLC or even a partnership to an S corporation is to avoid self-employed taxes.
So I'm sorry if I'm hogging the room with my questions, but I'm really curious as far as timing goes between a business that's, let's say, pulling in $25,000 to $30,000, pretty small, compared to a business that's pulling in $100,000. At what point in time, what's the timing on that like between jumping between a sole proprietorship to a corporation? What would you recommend?
Generally, there's no requirement to move from one to the other. I mean, the sole proprietorship and the sole member LLC, one has the corporate veil or corporate veil of protection over it. The other one doesn't. But they're the simplest ways to operate. When you want to check, you take it out. There's no worries about payroll taxes. Very clean from a bookkeeping standpoint. When you start to move to an S corporation, you trigger those payroll requirements, and it's most of the time moving to an S corporation is tax motivated or tax savings motivated because you're earning more than you have. I'm just going to say some goodwill type earnings. Like KT, you've become the man. I mean, everybody from Nashville's coming to Abingdon. They're beating the doors down. You're making a couple $100,000. And it's reasonable that you say, hey, realistically, I can probably hire somebody to do 90% of what I'm doing for, I'm making up a number again, $75,000. So maybe I have the potential to shelter some of my profits from self-employment tax. Maybe I need to talk to a CPA. But generally, it's going to come with increased profitability and the ability to pay the additional cost of payroll services and tax return preparation.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
So, another thing I'll tell everybody is that, within the first 3 years anymore, you can pretty well expect until COVID, a sales tax examination on your sales. So it's very important that you keep good records on your sales, that your daily sales reconcile to the amount of cash and credit cards you take in every day, and there's a clear path. I sold something for $100. I took in $5 of tax. Here's where I collected $50 in cash, and here's where I took $55 in credit cards. It all reconciles and adds up. You always want to create a good trail of transactions that you can trace both ways through your books. Having said that, I realize I've seen it for 35 years. Everybody goes out there and starts a business and says, well, we'll figure the books out later. And, we realize that most business owners know what's going on for the biggest part in their head. But at the end of the day, you have a responsibility for tax compliance, and that responsibility, can be tested again. And I'm not trying to scare anybody with state or federal examination. So you always want to keep a good set of records. I recommend QuickBooks Online. It's inexpensive. It's easy. It's cloud-based, Don. You'll love it. It's backed up every night. You can have access to it 24/7 from anywhere. If you work with a CPA or a bookkeeper who uses it, they can work in it at the same time you do to help keep you straight. And that's it. You can sync it to your business credit card. You can sync it to your checking account. Anymore with what goes on with artificial intelligence, your books will know what transactions have hit your account sometimes before you do with these new features. So QuickBooks Online, for most small businesses. Keep good sales records. If you have to have, there's a lot of online options for point of sale, whether it's Square. There's several of them. Just the key there is to set it up properly. Either everybody got muted or nobody's saying a word.
I think all of you have hit them with so much that their heads are just ready to explode. I saw someone with their hand up, but now I don't see it anymore. And if you missed in the chat, I know we were chatting about point of sale and what's being used, and I mentioned to those and put a link up on the 18th of February at noon. I'm working with partnering with the Small Business Development Center Network, UVA WISE, and Agus IT Solutions to do a session focused on online payment systems, point of sale, and online reservation services. And that's going to be presented by Chris Clear, who is with Atlantic Merchant Services. And if you're not able to join us at that time, it will also be archived up on Virginia Community Capital's Facebook page and YouTube channel. It's actually next week starts a whole series that we're doing every other week. And it's all focused on IT and technology issues that affect small businesses, nonprofits. So that's available. It's on Thursdays at noon every other week. That's it.
Okay, guys, we got 30 minutes. If you have legal or financial or insurance questions, it's now or never. This is what you're going to put in your business plan.
Are there any other sources of funding in the same sense of like we're doing here with the business challenge that you guys know of?
I'm sorry, I missed it. I missed the essence of your question.
Just as far as funding in the sense like this business challenge that we're all participating in, are there any other ones that you're aware of? As far as maybe not affiliated with Washington County, but other grants out there that are geared towards small businesses and small towns.
So Tanya could probably take this away. We get this question probably frequently, but as far as grant monies are concerned, other than the federal grants that have to do with PPP loans right now or things like that, governments don't usually give grant money for personal wealth. That's a general statement. So, if you're a big job creator, there are some things through the state of Virginia that will incentivize you to create a large number of jobs, or if you've invested a large amount of money into a community. But I don't know of any other operational grants, if you will. That's kind of what you're asking for, right?
Yeah, kind of in a nutshell.
I don't know of any other operational grants that are out there. Do you, Tanya, or Sandy, or Nita, or anybody?
They would be very niche, but as for micro lending, People Incorporated and the Mount Rogers Planning District Commission have micro loans available for Washington County. Those go, I think, $35,000 limit. But
they are loans, they're not grants.
That's correct. Grants are pretty hard to come by, but we will have someone with People Incorporated with us, and I think it's next to the last week of the it's a financing a business session. That will be on February the 16th, and we will.
Yeah. Don't we have a group called Where's the Money?
That's it.
Okay, yeah. So in this session, there'll be some folks that'll be able to talk to you about where there's some loan money available.
And it's worth noting that next week, Cindy Snyder with Virginia Community Capital, who's worked in small business lending for years and with People Incorporated. And it's a treat to have Carl Noblick, who is the Virginia Director of the Small Business Administration. Those two will be leading the session next week. And that's definitely a question for, if anybody, Carl. That guy knows a little bit of everything. And we've got hands up for Katie, Jenny, and Don Williams. So, Jenny, we've not heard from you tonight. How about you go first?
Okay, so my question goes back to the insurance and workers' comp thing. I am the owner of my business and I do everything, but we also have classes and I pay instructors that are teaching my classes and I pay them with a 1099, not a W-2. Mm-hmm. So they teach, we talk about what we want to offer, but they're in charge of their classes and they teach. So am I okay keeping them as 1099, or is that something that, I wouldn't want to do long-term or permanently?
So they have students who are on the premises of your store, your craft store? Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a gray area. Let me think.
Okay. So, Chris, while you're thinking,
sometimes within the employee versus contractor decision point, there's what's known as industry norms. And if these people, what are they coming in to teach? What exactly do they teach?
So we do sewing classes, we do crochet classes, and we do Cricut machine classes currently.
And you pretty much just give them a space, say, hey, you do your thing, come in, and they hold themselves out to do that for other businesses.
Students for a waiver to help with that? Like if they signed a waiver. I wonder if they signed a waiver, Mark, could that protect her?
No, there's a test for that the IRS uses, and they're going to classify them depending on the type of work they're doing. And Mike's probably had that come up more than anybody, I guess. But my guess is as long as you're not directing them, you're just making your space available and offering some classes in hope that you can sell your goods, while they're there, and those kinds of things that, if you're not directing them, telling them how to do their job, what to do, there's a 7-part test of things they look at as to whether they can be classified as an independent contractor or an employee. You're probly, I don't know, think, Mike, I'm guessing she'd probably be all right.
Like I said, there's sometimes there are industry norms, and in that case, are you paying them to come in, or are they coming in just for the opportunity to try and pick up some business themselves?
Well, I pay them, and students register through my website. Right. But as far as, I don't say, this is exactly what you're going to be teaching. They come up with that, but I do pay them.
They're probably okay, because they're probably holding them, they can probably do that for other people too. It's not like a regular reoccurring type of relationship that you have with them. Insubstantial in nature.
Okay. Thank you.
Who else had questions?
I have a question. Does anyone have any of their business equipment or inventory in their home? So they have a physical space, and then they also at home they may have their some business equipment or inventory in your house. Yes. You definitely want to check with your homeowner's insurer, because you possibly could get a rider for business in the home. It could afford you some coverage for that business property, and it's really affordable. If you are actually conducting business in the home, then definitely want to call your homeowner's insurer, because you will absolutely need a business in the home, either rider, it's often called an endorsement, it's an add-on, or a separate policy. These are also very affordable. But again, I hope no one here is doing that. It's significant liability to you. But yeah, just your inventory in your home is usually not a great idea. However, you can have ways to cover it very cheaply.
I see Don waving his hand there a moment.
Yes, I have a question for Mike. And the question, well, either regarding the PPP information. I know that nothing is known about what they're talking about, and they may talk forever. What happened last time? Who qualified to get that money, not a loan? Was it all loans, or was it grants, or who did they select? In other words, you had to be of certain size to qualify to even apply to receive any money. And if you were small or didn't have a lot of employees, then you did not qualify.
No, basically, Don, you just had to be in business during 2019 or by, I think it was February 15th, 2020. And, the funds were advanced based on payroll levels. And if you didn't have payroll levels, basically profitability of a sole proprietorship. And generally, the loan amount was based on 2.5 months of W-2 compensation or profitability, with a maximum of a prorated amount of $100,000 per year.
Those were all loans.
Those are all the loans, but
right.
As long as I'm just going to keep it simple here. As long as you spent all your money on either your own compensation if you're self-employed, or W-2 costs for your employees, within a 24-week period, your loan was forgiven. So at that point in time, it technically became a grant.
Okay. Well, that's what they were. Well, we'll see if ever anything comes of this new Congress, but.
Well, the same thing's going on now with PPP round 2.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not going to qualify.
And you had to have a loss of 25% or something, Mike.
You'd have a decrease in revenues by 25% in any given quarter.
That was really designed for people who had employees who.
Not necessarily. You could be a Schedule C with no employees. There you go. Katie has her hand up.
Okay. Well, thank you for your answer.
Absolutely. If you need any help, feel free to give me a shout.
I have no fear.
Katie has her hand up.
Yeah, I had a question about sort of the tax environment with COVID. Do you know if there's going to be any sort of need to keep up with, like, I have personally done a lot of my business at home, taking pictures of inventory and things like that. Like Christine was saying, like, it's not typical for me to keep my inventory here, but I sort of haul it back and forth from the shop to take pictures, to process it, then to take it back. And then, of course, I do a great deal of my business that I would typically do at the shop because it's closed from here at the house. So do you know if there's any reason to sort of keep up with those expenses and the time that I spend here at the house doing those things, like as far as like a home business office designated area, Mike, or is that something that we don't know yet for this 2020 tax year or the 2021 tax year?
Yeah, I don't, I don't think there's anything, I haven't heard of anything new coming out. We've always had what's called the home office business deduction that you can get as a self-employed person. So, and that's generally based on the square footage of your space that's dedicated to your business use at your house. And, whatever the size of that space is, percentage wise to the total size of your home, that percentage is applied to all of your, I'm just going to call it your household expenses, utilities, maintenance, and that becomes a deduction on Schedule C. But I haven't seen anything, there's no special things going on in relation to COVID that I've seen.
Okay, thank you.
Nita, do you have anything?
No, not if anybody else, if they would like to say anything else.
Is Matthew's hand back up?
Yeah, I've got a corporate question regarding assets. The building I'm putting things in is going to be an individual purchase by me. And typically when I do these, I put this, including other rental property and stuff, in a trust. My corporate structure, I'm having to do as a PLLC with a 1% partner just to build Medicare, right? Other than that, I would have done an S corp, but just for, billing purposes, Medicare purposes and things. But I am the managing partner in that PLLC. Am I going to have an issue when I go to rent a building basically off of myself, who I'm executor of that trust? Or would I be better off to buy that building as a PLLC, but I won't have any protection of it when it comes to estate planning? So kind of gotten several different views from different people on, yes, buy it through the trust, just write it off through the trust. And, it's going to be a red flag when you're renting something off of your own personally owned entity.
Right. No, I mean, generally in business, we see real estate held in an entity separate from the operational business, and that is to protect the assets protect the real estate from the liabilities of the operating company. We see real estate in trust when we're talking about, large commercial developments, and, that's part of an estate planning maneuver. Otherwise, most rental real estate is owned in just an LLC anymore, and leased back to the operating entity. If you have a trust leasing the real estate, there can be some limitations depending upon the type of trust in depreciation allowances, specifically Section 179 first year depreciation that can go on. And, you can run into some limitations or negative tax attributes when you try to get money out or when you sell the real estate.
Gotcha.
Generally, once you put in, when you see real estate in a trust, it's a shopping center or a major commercial building, and it's there forever, and the monies are going to stay there forever.
That's sort of how this is done. This is done basically for me, to pass through to my son, and in case something happens, he doesn't have to deal with any. So it's not going anywhere per se.
Got you.
All right. Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Don's hand's up again.
Yes. I have a question for Sandy. Sandy, you said that you were having a IT class or on a Thursday. Can you tell a little more about that and when that is?
It's actually a series of sessions, and I will send Nita all the information, and when she sends out the email follow-up from today, she can send it. But basically what it is, Dawn, is it starts next Thursday at noon, and it's every other week on a Thursday at noon, and it will have different topics all focused on IT and technology related issues.
Excellent.
That impact not only a small business, but also a nonprofits. And this is a collaboration with the Small Business Development Centers in Southwest Virginia, UVA's College at Wise, and then Agus Technology.
Okay. Well,
and those
thank
will
you
be
very much.
recorded.
I will attend. Thank you very much.
Okay.
As time winds down here, I'll just say I put my information up on the screen. And I invite any of you to contact me anytime with any questions that you have, and I'd be happy to help you out to answer your questions for you, or at least see what I can do to further your understanding of any routes that you're trying to consider in getting your business up and going, or making decisions within your existing business.
Mike?
Yes.
Can you maybe just tell them what all for the first prize for a startup, and what you give as your business?
Sure. Yeah, be happy to. So we give 1 year of service, and that service includes, we will host a set of QuickBooks for you. You will be responsible for entering your checks and your deposits into QuickBooks. We provide all training and support. We come back on a monthly basis and we'll reconcile your checking accounts and your credit card accounts. We will prepare your sales and use tax returns for you. We'll help you set up whatever accounting systems are required based upon the type of business that you have. We do not include payroll in that service because payroll can be a very intensive and complicated service, and just sort of runs costs up tremendously on our side. But so we'll reconcile your books. We'll sit down with you once a quarter to, talk about where you are, where you're going, try to help you understand your profit and loss and your balance sheet statements. In about the third quarter, we use your numbers to start tax planning. So we'll try to project where you're going, help you make some decisions, talk to you about retirement plans, which we haven't even discussed tonight. I'm sorry. The first line of defense and taxes. And then we'll prepare your tax return for you. And, basically that's a full year's service, and it's about a $12,000 value.
Thank you. Also, we've got one quick question from Katie, and she's wanting to know, for QuickBooks Online, which plan do you recommend? Just Simple Start, okay?
Simple Start's fine. It just depends on the business, Katie. Whether or not you need classes. Classes are what QuickBooks uses that you and I might think of as departments. So sometimes if you need to get into the class, utilizing classes to separate categories of sales and expenses, you have to move up to the next subscription.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions? Are we ready to wrap it up for tonight?
Is Matthew's hand up again, or is that his last hand?
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Well, we would like to thank Mike and Mark and Chris for being part of the session tonight. I think all of you will agree, all the expert advice that they've given will help you move along with your business. As always, we're here to help you, and we're just so excited to have you on board. And I'll be sending you out some information about tonight's meeting. And I think I've got everybody's forms. Also, sent you the mentoring and counselors list. So just know that we're here to support you, and we hope you have a great night and stay safe.
Bye,
Good luck,
everybody.
everyone.
See you next week.
Thank
Don't
you.
forget. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.